While most farmers remember the iconic John Deere 4020 or the legendary Farmall M, there's a whole world of rare muscle tractors that roared across American fields with power you wouldn't believe. These weren't your grandfather's steady workhorses. These were fire-breathing beasts built for speed, strength, and pure agricultural dominance. Today, we're counting down 15 rare muscle tractors that you've probably never seen. Number 15, the Minneapolis-Moline G707 Vista. Some tractors changed farming forever with brute force, but the Minneapolis-Moline G707 Vista did it with style and a cockpit view that looked like something from an airplane. Built in 1963, this wasn't just another row crop tractor. It was a statement. Minneapolis-Moline wanted to give farmers the ultimate visibility, so they mounted the operator high above the hood in an enclosed cab with wraparound glass that offered a panoramic view of everything below. It felt futuristic, almost science fiction, in an era when most farmers still sat on open seats, getting covered in dust. Under that distinctive sloped hood sat a 425 cubic inch six-cylinder engine that cranked out 85 horsepower. Serious grunt for its day. The power came from Minneapolis-Moline's own design, a naturally aspirated diesel that pulled like a freight train in the lower RPM range where real fieldwork happened. But it was that cab design that made the G707 Vista a true muscle tractor legend. The visibility was unmatched. You could see all four corners of your implement, watch your tire placement with precision, and keep an eye on field conditions without constantly craning your neck. The glass-enclosed design also meant protection from weather, something that sounds basic now but was revolutionary then. Minneapolis-Moline even added a heater, turning this muscle tractor into a comfortable command center. Production numbers were limited, making the Vista one of the rarest muscle tractors from the golden era of Minneapolis-Moline. The company was already struggling financially during the mid-60s, and the Vista's premium price tag meant fewer farmers could justify the investment compared to conventional tractors. Today, finding a G707 Vista in original condition is like discovering buried treasure. Collectors prize them not just for rarity, but for the wild ambition they represent. Number 14, the Oliver 1850. Produced from 1960 to 1964, this tractor combined elegance with raw pulling power in a package that turned heads at every farm auction and field day. Oliver's signature meadow green and clover white paint scheme gave the 1850 an almost aristocratic appearance. But underneath that pretty sheet metal was a workhorse that could run with anything in its class. The heart of the 1850 was a 302 cubic inch six-cylinder diesel engine, producing 62 horsepower at the drawbar and 72 at the PTO, or power takeoff. Oliver engineers had refined their diesel technology to deliver smooth, consistent power across the RPM range, making this tractor equally capable of heavy tillage work and delicate tasks like operating a combine harvester. The engine featured direct injection, which was cutting-edge technology in the early 60s, allowing for better fuel economy and cleaner combustion compared to older indirect injection designs. What made the 1850 a true muscle tractor was Oliver's hydroelectric system, a groundbreaking hydraulic setup that gave operators fingertip control over implements, with response times that felt almost instantaneous. This wasn't some clunky lever system that required wrestling and muscle. Instead, electrically controlled hydraulic valves let farmers raise and lower equipment with surgical precision. For tasks like cultivating, where maintaining exact depth was critical, the hydroelectric system was nothing short of revolutionary. It represented Oliver's commitment to making farming more precise and less physically demanding. The 1850 also featured Oliver's 6-speed transmission with synchronized shifting in the top 2 gears, allowing on-the-go gear changes without clutching, something most tractor operators had never experienced. This made fieldwork smoother and road transport faster and safer. With a top speed approaching 23 miles per hour, the 1850 could hustle between fields without holding up traffic on country roads. Number 13, the Allis-Chalmers D21 Series 2. Introduced in 1965 and produced through 1969, this big orange beast was designed for operations that needed serious pulling capacity and all-day endurance. While the original D21 had already impressed the agricultural world, the Series 2 refinements made it a true muscle tractor legend. Under the hood sat a 426 cubic inch turbocharged 6-cylinder diesel that generated 127 horsepower, numbers that put it in elite company during the mid-60s. Allis-Chalmers had embraced turbocharging earlier than most competitors, understanding that forced induction was the future of tractor power. That turbo didn't just add peak horsepower, it transformed the power delivery across the entire RPM range. giving operators massive torque reserves whenever they needed to dig deeper or pull harder. The engine's distinctive whistle became the soundtrack of large-scale farming operations across the Midwest. The D21 Series 2 featured Allis-Chalmers Power Director transmission, a 20-speed gearbox that gave operators incredible flexibility. The system combined a basic 5-speed transmission with a 4-range auxiliary, plus a 2-speed power shift that allowed clutchless shifting on the go. This meant farmers could fine-tune their ground speed to match field conditions perfectly, maximizing efficiency, whether they were plowing virgin prairie or pulling a 10-bottom plow through heavy soil. That level of control separated professional operators from weekend farmers. Allis-Chalmers didn't skimp on the hydraulics either. The D21 Series 2 came equipped with a closed-center hydraulic system capable of handling multiple remote cylinders simultaneously, making it ideal for complex implements that required coordinated movements. The 3-point hitch could lift over 6,000 pounds, meaning this tractor could handle the biggest and heaviest equipment manufacturers were building. For farmers investing in modern, high-capacity implements, the D21 Series 2 was the tractor that could exploit their full potential. The rarity of the D21 Series 2 today comes from its position in agricultural history. It was a transitional machine built during a period when farming was industrializing rapidly. Many of these tractors worked themselves to death on large operations, running 15-hour days during planting and harvest seasons. Survivors often show the scars of hard use, making pristine examples exceptionally valuable. Number 12. The John Deere 5010. John Deere is famous for their green and yellow legacy, but the 5010 holds a special place as one of the rarest and most powerful tractors from the company's early diesel era. Built from 1952 to 1956, the 5010 was Deere's flagship model before the numbered series transformed into the iconic new generation tractors of the 60s. This was big-time farming equipment designed for operations that needed maximum pulling power and durability in an era when agricultural mechanization was exploding across America. The 5010 was powered by a 375 cubic inch 2-cylinder diesel engine. Yes, just 2 cylinders, but each one was massive. John Deere had perfected the horizontal 2-cylinder layout over decades, and in the 5010, they pushed it to the absolute limit. The engine produced 51 horsepower at the drawbar, which might not sound impressive by modern standards, but the torque output was phenomenal. That big diesel could lug down to incredibly low RPM and still pull with authority, making it perfect for heavy plowing, deep tillage, and pulling oversized loads across rough terrain. What made the 5010 a muscle tractor wasn't just raw power. It was the legendary durability John Deere engineered into every component. The transmission was a 6-speed unit built like a bank vault, with gears thick enough to handle decades of abuse. The rear axle and final drives were overbuilt to John Deere's typical standards, meaning breakdowns were rare and repairs were straightforward when they did occur. Farmers loved the 5010 because it represented old-school reliability in an increasingly complex agricultural world. The 2-cylinder engine also gave the 5010 a distinctive personality. The sound was unmistakable, a deep, rhythmic pop, pop, pop that echoed across fields and announced a John Deere was working long before you could see it. That engine ran at just 1,125 RPM at full throttle, a leisurely pace by modern standards, but one that delivered smooth, unstressed power all day long. Fuel economy was excellent, and the simple design meant even small-town mechanics could service the tractor without specialized training or exotic parts. Production numbers for the 5010 were relatively low compared to Deere's smaller models, and many of these tractors have been scrapped or modified beyond recognition over the decades. Collectors prize these tractors not just for their rarity, but for what they represent, a time when horsepower came from displacement and durability mattered more than technology. Number 11, the Case 930. Produced from 1958 to 1960, the 930 was Case's flagship model during a transitional period when the company was moving from traditional designs toward more modern, high-powered machines. What emerged was a tractor that borrowed the best from both eras, classic Case durability wrapped around cutting-edge engineering. The 930 came with a 377 cubic inch diesel engine that produced 80 horsepower, making it one of the most powerful row crop tractors available when it launched. Case engineers had designed this engine with agricultural work in mind, optimizing torque delivery in the lower and middle RPM ranges, where plowing and heavy pulling happened. The engine featured direct injection and a compression ratio high enough to ensure reliable cold weather starting, critical for farmers in northern states where spring planting began while frost still threatened. But the real muscle in the 930 came from Case's Case-O-Matic drive system, an early attempt at providing power shift capabilities that would eventually become standard on all high-horsepower tractors. The Case-O-Matic allowed operators to shift between ranges without clutching, dramatically improving productivity during operations that required frequent speed changes. While the system wasn't perfect, early versions had reliability issues. It represented Case's commitment to innovation and willingness to take risks other manufacturers avoided. The 930 also featured one of the best hydraulic systems in its class, with a capacity to handle multiple remote cylinders and implements simultaneously. Case had learned from years of feedback that modern farming required tractors capable of operating increasingly complex equipment. The hydraulic pump on the 930 delivered enough flow to run everything from loaders to industrial-grade tillers without compromising response time. For farmers who demanded versatility, the 930 was a tractor that could do it all. Finding a 930 today is challenging because production numbers were limited, and the model was quickly superseded by Case's 30 and 40 series tractors. Many 930s worked hard lives on large operations, and survivors are often well-worn. However, collectors who specialize in Case equipment consider the 930 a holy grail because it represents the last generation before Case merged with International Harvester. Number 10. The Massey Ferguson 97. Massey Ferguson earned respect worldwide for building tractors that balanced power with sophistication, and the 97 was their statement piece for serious farmers who demanded maximum capability. Produced from 1957 to 1962, the 97 sat at the top of Massey Ferguson's lineup during an era when the company was establishing itself as a global powerhouse. This wasn't just a big tractor. It was a precision instrument designed to handle the most demanding agricultural work with European refinement and North American muscle. Under the hood was a 371 cubic inch six-cylinder diesel engine, producing 74 horsepower. Strong numbers for the late 50s. Massey Ferguson had sourced this engine from Perkins, the legendary British diesel manufacturer known for building bulletproof power plants that could run for decades with proper maintenance. The Perkins engine in the 97 featured direct injection and delivered smooth, linear power that made it equally capable of heavy tillage and delicate field work. Operators loved the refined feel. There was none of the harshness or vibration common in competitors' machines. The 97 featured Massey Ferguson's multi-power transmission, an ingenious system that essentially doubled the available gears by adding a 2-speed planetary reduction unit. This gave operators 12 forward speeds and 4 reverse gears, allowing precise speed matching for any task. The system could be shifted on the go, a significant advantage during operations like baling or harvesting, where maintaining consistent ground speed was critical. The multi-power setup represented Massey Ferguson's engineering philosophy: give farmers more options and trust them to use those options intelligently. What made the 97 truly special was its sophisticated hydraulic system with draft control, a feature that automatically adjusted implement depth based on engine load. This meant the tractor could compensate for changing soil conditions without constant operator input, reducing fatigue during long days and improving work quality. Draft control had been pioneered by Ferguson decades earlier, and the 97 showcased how far that technology had evolved. For professional farmers who understood the value of precision, this feature alone justified the 97's premium price. The rarity of the 97 today comes from its international nature. Many were exported to markets around the world, and North American survivors are scattered and often modified. Number 9. The International Harvester 450. International Harvester built an empire on red tractors that could outwork anything on the farm, and the 450 was their answer to farmers who needed maximum versatility without sacrificing power. Produced from 1956 to 1958, the 450 was International's workhorse model, designed to handle everything from row crop work to heavy transport with equal capability. This wasn't a specialized tractor. It was an agricultural Swiss Army knife, built during an era when most farmers owned just 1 or 2 tractors and needed them to do everything. The 450 featured International's 264 cubic inch 4 6-cylinder engine producing 50 horsepower, a solid figure for a mid-sized tractor in the late 50s. International had designed this engine for longevity and fuel efficiency, using relatively conservative RPM limits and heavy-duty components throughout. The engine could run on gasoline, diesel, or LP gas, depending on the configuration, giving farmers flexibility based on fuel availability and cost in their region. This multi-fuel capability was typical of International's practical engineering philosophy: build what farmers actually need, not what looks impressive on paper. What made the 450 a muscle tractor was International's renowned torque amplifier, a hydraulic power shift device that could be engaged on the go to instantly reduce ground speed by approximately 30% while increasing pulling power proportionally. This meant operators could adjust to changing field conditions, hitting a wet spot or encountering harder soil, without stopping to shift gears or losing momentum. The torque amplifier transformed the 450 from a good tractor into a great one, giving it capabilities that competitors couldn't match without complex and expensive transmissions. The hydraulic system on the 450 was equally impressive, with International's touch control system providing draft sensing and position control for implements. This technology made three-point hitch operation intuitive and precise, allowing farmers to maintain consistent working depths even as soil conditions varied. The touch control lever fell naturally to hand, and experienced operators could make adjustments without looking away from their work. For a tractor from the mid-50s, this level of sophistication was remarkable. Finding a 450 today means discovering a tractor that represents International Harvester at their peak, confident, capable, and building machines that dominated American agriculture. Number 8. The Steiger Bearcat Series 1. The Bearcat Series 1, produced in the late 1960s, was one of their early masterpieces, a purpose-built powerhouse designed for large-scale farming operations that needed to cover thousands of acres quickly and efficiently. While most farmers were still running conventional tractors, progressive operators were discovering that Steiger's radically different approach was the future of agriculture. The Bearcat Series 1 was powered by a Cummins 6-cylinder turbocharged diesel producing around 238 horsepower, numbers that seemed almost absurd in an era when most tractors topped out around 100 horsepower. That Cummins engine was borrowed from heavy truck applications, meaning it was already proven in demanding commercial use. Steiger engineers mated it to a custom transmission and articulated chassis that put all that power to the ground through 4 massive drive wheels. The result was a tractor that could pull implements conventional machines couldn't even lift, operating in conditions that would bog down anything else. The articulated design was the Bearcat's secret weapon. Instead of front wheels that steered by pivoting, the entire tractor bent in the middle, with the front and rear halves connected by a massive pivot joint. This meant all 4 wheels drove constantly, providing traction that was simply impossible for 2-wheel drive machines to match. In heavy soil, muddy conditions, or steep terrain, the Bearcat could maintain forward progress, while competitors spun helplessly. That capability meant farmers could work more days per year, getting into fields earlier in spring and continuing later into fall without getting stuck. Steiger built their tractors by hand in small quantities, and the Bearcat Series 1 was no exception. Each tractor was essentially custom assembled to customer specifications, with options for different engines, transmissions, and configurations depending on the operation's needs. This meant no 2 Bearcats were exactly alike, and tracking down specific information about individual machines can be nearly impossible. That hand-built nature also meant build quality was exceptional. These weren't mass-produced machines, but rather carefully crafted tools built by people who understood large-scale farming. The rarity of Bearcat Series 1 tractors today makes them legends among collectors who specialize in 4-wheel drive articulated machines. Many work themselves to death on enormous farms in the Dakotas, Montana, and Canadian prairies, where they racked up tens of thousands of hours. Survivors are often well-worn, but still operational, testament to Steiger's overbuilt engineering. Number 7. The Ford 9000. Ford might not be the first name that comes to mind when thinking about muscle tractors, but the 9000 proved they could build big iron that ran with anyone. Introduced in 1968 and produced through the early 70s, the 9000 was Ford's flagship tractor, designed to compete directly with John Deere, International Harvester, and Massey Ferguson in the high horsepower market. This was Ford's statement that they weren't just making utility tractors anymore. They were serious about dominating the entire industry. The heart of the 9000 was a 401 cubic inch six-cylinder, turbocharged diesel producing 131 horsepower, making it one of the most powerful two-wheel drive tractors available when it launched. Ford had finally embraced turbocharging after years of relying on naturally aspirated engines, and the results were impressive. That turbo transformed the power delivery, providing massive torque reserves that let operators pull through tough conditions without constantly managing the throttle. The engine featured direct injection and a high-pressure fuel system that delivered exceptional economy for a tractor in its power class. Ford equipped the 9000 with their Select O-Speed transmission, a controversial but innovative, continuously variable system that used a power shift mechanism to provide infinite speed variations within its range. When it worked properly, Select O-Speed was magical. Operators could dial in exactly the right ground speed for any task without worrying about discrete gear ratios. The system was perfect for operations like combining or baling, where maintaining precise speed was critical. However, the transmission was complex and required careful maintenance, earning a mixed reputation among farmers who either loved it or hated it, depending on their mechanical aptitude. The 9000 also featured Ford's draft-sensing hydraulics, with position and draft control modes, giving operators the flexibility to choose how implements responded to changing conditions. The hydraulic capacity was substantial enough to handle the largest three-point hitch implements available, and the system responded quickly to operator inputs. Ford had clearly studied what competitors were doing and engineered the 9000 to match or exceed those capabilities. Finding a Ford 9000 today means discovering a tractor that represented the company's peak ambitions in agriculture before they eventually sold their tractor division to New Holland. Number 6. The White 2105. White Motor Corporation's move into agriculture created some of the most powerful and unusual tractors ever built, and the 2105 Field Boss was their showcase of engineering ambition. Produced in the mid-1970s, this massive tractor represented White's attempt to compete in the high-horsepower articulated market that Steiger and others had pioneered. What emerged was a machine that combined Detroit muscle with agricultural capability in ways no one had attempted before. The 2105 was powered by a Caterpillar 3400 Series V8 diesel, producing 210 horsepower, making it one of the most powerful tractors you could buy at the time. White chose Caterpillar power for good reason. That engine was already proven in construction equipment and road graders, where reliability and durability were non-negotiable. The V8 configuration provided smooth power delivery and excellent balance, plus the distinctive sound of a Bearcat diesel that operators could recognize from a mile away. Fuel capacity was enormous, with dual tanks holding over 200 gallons combined, meaning this tractor could work all day without refueling. The articulated chassis on the 2105 followed the now-proven formula of a center pivot joint and four-wheel drive, but White engineers added their own refinements. The oscillating front axle could articulate independently, allowing the tractor to maintain traction even when working on uneven terrain. The four-wheel drive system was full-time and mechanically locked, meaning power was always split equally front and rear. This resulted in incredible pulling capacity. The 2105 could handle implements that would simply overwhelm smaller tractors. White equipped the 2105 with a 20-speed power shift transmission that gave operators incredible flexibility. The system allowed clutchless shifting through 4 ranges, with a power shift clutch pack that could modulate engagement smoothly. This meant operators could fine-tune their ground speed precisely, whether they were pulling a deep tillage ripper at 3 miles per hour or hauling grain wagons down country roads at 25. The transmission was built heavy-duty enough to handle the Caterpillar engine's massive torque output without flinching. Today, finding a 2105 in operating condition means discovering a bold experiment that proved White could build tractors as capable as anyone. They just ran out of time to prove it to the market. Number 5. The versatile 875. Canadian engineering produced some of the toughest and most capable tractors ever built, and Versatile's 875 stands as perhaps the ultimate example. Produced in the late 1970s and early 80s, this massive articulated tractor was designed specifically for prairie farming, where operations measured in thousands or tens of thousands of acres demanded equipment that could cover ground quickly and reliably. Versatile had been building four-wheel drive articulated tractors since the early 60s, and the 875 represented decades of refinement and learning. The transmission was a 12-speed power shift unit that provided 3 ranges with 4 gears each, all shiftable on the go. Versatile engineers had designed the transmission to handle the Cummins engine's massive torque without requiring frequent service or repairs. The clutch packs were overbuilt and oil-cooled, ensuring they could modulate power smoothly, even when pulling maximum load implements. Gear ratios were spaced to provide good overlap, meaning operators could find exactly the right speed for any task, from deep ripping to road transport. The rarity of the 875 today comes from its Canadian origins and the specialized market it served. Most were sold to large operations in the prairie provinces and northern U.S. states, where they accumulated enormous hours doing exactly what they were designed for. Number 4, the John Deere 840. By the late 1970s, John Deere had entered the articulated 4-wheel drive market with characteristic thoroughness, and the 840 represented their commitment to competing at the highest power levels. Introduced in 1978, the 840 was Deere's answer to operations that demanded maximum horsepower with the legendary green and yellow reliability. This wasn't a tractor built to break records or chase specifications. It was engineered to work year after year with minimal downtime, just like every Deere before it. The 840 came with a John Deere 766 cubic inch turbocharged and intercooled 6-cylinder diesel, producing 300 horsepower. Deere had designed this engine specifically for agricultural applications, giving it characteristics that prioritized torque and longevity over peak power numbers. The intercooler was a significant addition, reducing intake air temperature and allowing higher boost pressures without risking engine damage. This resulted in power delivery that was smooth and consistent across the entire RPM range, with massive reserves available when operators encountered tough conditions. The articulated chassis followed Deere's typical philosophy, overbuilt to the point of being nearly indestructible. The center pivot joint featured massive, tapered roller bearings that could handle both the tractor's weight and the tremendous forces generated during heavy pulling. The 4-wheel drive system used planetary final drives at all 4 corners, providing exceptional strength and ground clearance. Those planetaries were sealed units designed for long life, and they rarely required anything beyond periodic oil changes. Deere had studied competitors' designs and built something that addressed every common failure point. John Deere equipped the 840 with a 16-speed quad-range transmission that provided 4 ranges with 4 gears each, all power shiftable. The system allowed operators to shift between gears within a range without clutching, dramatically improving productivity during operations that required frequent speed changes. The transmission was controlled by a single lever that fell naturally to hand, and the logic was intuitive enough that operators could master it within a few hours. This attention to usability was classic Deere. Make it powerful, make it durable, and make it easy to operate. The 840's rarity today is relative. Deere built these tractors in respectable numbers, but most went to large operations where they accumulated enormous hours. Unlike some muscle tractors that became collectibles early, 840s continued working for decades, often receiving updates and modifications as technology evolved. Number 3. The Case I.H. Steiger 93070. When Case and International Harvester merged in 1985, the resulting company inherited Steiger Manufacturing's legendary 4-wheel drive lineup, and the 93070 became the flagship of a new agricultural dynasty. Produced in the late 1980s and early 90s, this massive articulated tractor represented the absolute peak of mechanical muscle before electronics began dominating tractor design. The 937 wasn't just powerful, it was a rolling statement that Case 1H intended to own the high horsepower market. Under the hood sat a Cummins N14 6-cylinder, turbocharged and intercooled diesel, displacing 855 cubic inches and producing 375 horsepower. This engine was legendary in heavy trucking, and in agricultural trim, it delivered the same relentless durability. The intercooler kept intake temperatures under control during sustained heavy pulling, and the high-pressure fuel system delivered precise injection timing. The result was an engine that could work at maximum capacity hour after hour without complaint. The articulated chassis on the 93070 followed Steiger's proven formula, but with Case 1H refinements. All 4 wheels featured planetary final drives with oil bath brakes that could stop the tractor reliably even when pulling heavy loads downhill. Every component was designed with serviceability in mind. Filters, fluids, and maintenance points were accessible without special tools. Case IH equipped the 930/70 with a 12-speed full power shift transmission that could be shifted under load without lifting off the throttle. The transmission featured 3 ranges with 4 gears each, providing excellent gear spacing for everything from deep tillage to road transport. Shift quality was smooth and consistent thanks to computer-controlled clutch pack modulation, one of the first applications of electronic controls in an otherwise mechanical tractor. The system learned operator preferences and adapted shift timing for optimal comfort and productivity. The 930/70 represented the last generation of tractors that an experienced mechanic could diagnose and repair with basic tools and mechanical knowledge. Collectors who find these machines today discover tractors that embodied pure mechanical capability. No screens, no GPS, no computers, just iron and steel doing exactly what they were told. Number 2, the Big Bud 747. Some muscle tractors were built for production farming, but the Big Bud 747 was built to rewrite the record books entirely. Constructed in 1977 by the Northern Manufacturing Company in Montana, this wasn't just a tractor, it was an engineering experiment that became the largest farm tractor ever built. Commissioned by the Rossi Brothers farming operation in the same state, the 747 was designed to handle a specific challenge, working tens of thousands of acres of Montana wheat ground where conventional tractors, even the largest articulated models, were simply too small to be efficient. The numbers behind the Big Bud 747 sound fictional until you see the machine in person. It weighed over 95,000 pounds, stood 14 feet tall, measured 27 feet long, and rode on 8-foot-tall tires that cost $20,000 each, even in 1977 money. But the real story was under that massive hood. A Detroit diesel 16-cylinder, 16 V92 two-stroke engine, displacing 1,472 cubic inches and producing 760 horsepower. This wasn't a tractor engine adapted from agricultural use. It was a marine diesel borrowed from tugboats and generator sets, then modified to survive the unique demands of farming. That Detroit diesel screamed rather than rumbled, a high-pitched wail from 16 cylinders firing in rapid succession. The sound was unforgettable. Part jet engine, part locomotive, nothing like any other tractor ever built. Fuel consumption was measured in gallons per hour, with the Big Bud burning around 20 gallons hourly under load. The fuel tank held over 1,000 gallons, meaning it could work for days without refueling. The Big Bud 747 rode on an articulated chassis that followed conventional four-wheel drive principles, but executed at a scale nobody had attempted before. All 4 wheels drove constantly through a relatively simple transmission, just 6 forward speeds and 2 reverse. Because at this scale and power level, complexity was the enemy of reliability. The transmission was custom-built to handle the Detroit diesel's enormous torque without requiring constant service. Northern Manufacturing designed the Big Bud 747 to pull a massive cultivator across Montana wheat fields, covering over an acre per minute at working speed. The drawbar could handle loads exceeding 90,000 pounds of pull, meaning this tractor could work implements that would simply snap the hitches off conventional machines. The hydraulic system was borrowed from construction equipment, with pumps and cylinders sized for industrial applications, rather than agricultural ones. Even the operator's cab was custom-built, with enough space for 2 people to work comfortably during the 18-hour days, common during spring planting. The Big Bud 747 worked the Rossi Brothers farm for decades, accumulating over 20,000 hours before being retired in the early 2000s. Today it sits in a museum in Montana, preserved as the ultimate expression of agricultural muscle. Only one was ever built, making it not just rare, but absolutely unique. Number 1, the Wagner WA-14. Before Steiger, before John Deere's articulated giants, before anyone else was even thinking about four-wheel drive farm tractors, Wagner Manufacturing in Portland, Oregon, was building machines that would define the category for decades to come. The WA-14, produced in the late 1950s and early 60s, wasn't just rare, it was revolutionary. This was the tractor that proved articulated four-wheel drive was the future of high-horsepower farming, a concept so radical that most farmers couldn't even understand it until they saw one working in the field. Richard Wagner started building articulated tractors in his small shop in 1946, handcrafting machines for logging and construction work in the Pacific Northwest. By the late 50s, he'd refined his designs enough to target agriculture, and the WA-14 was his masterpiece. It featured a Cummins NH Series 6-cylinder turbocharged diesel producing around 150 horsepower, enormous numbers for the late 1950s, when most tractors topped out around 80 horsepower. That Cummins engine was borrowed from road construction equipment, already proven in demanding applications, and Wagner mated it to a heavy-duty transmission and articulated chassis of his own design. The articulated concept was so foreign to farmers that Wagner had to demonstrate it repeatedly before anyone would commit to buying. Traditional tractors steered with front wheels that pivoted, but the WA-14 bent in the middle. All four wheels drove constantly, providing traction that two-wheel drive machines simply couldn't match. In heavy soil or muddy conditions, the WA-14 could maintain forward progress, while conventional tractors spun helplessly. The concept was so effective that within a decade, every major manufacturer would be building their own versions. Wagner built the WA-14's chassis from heavy structural steel, with a massive center pivot that could handle tremendous forces during heavy pulling. The four-wheel drive system was mechanically locked, meaning power split equally front and rear without complex differentials or electronics. Everything about the design prioritized simplicity, durability, and serviceability, critical factors for farmers working hundreds of miles from the nearest dealer. The transmission was a relatively simple 5-speed unit, but Wagner had selected ratios that gave the WA-14 excellent versatility. Low range provided the grunt needed for deep tillage and maximum pulling, while high range allowed road speeds approaching 25 miles per hour. The clutch was a dual-disc setup, borrowed from heavy trucks, sized to handle the Cummins engine's torque output, with plenty of reserve capacity. Wagner understood that farmers would abuse these tractors in ways he couldn't predict, so he engineered in safety margins that would make the WA-14 nearly bulletproof. Production numbers for the WA-14 were tiny. Wagner Manufacturing was essentially a custom shop that built tractors one at a time or in very small batches. Each machine was hand-assembled, with components sourced from various suppliers and integrated into Wagner's proprietary chassis design. This meant no two WA-14s were exactly identical, and tracking down specific information about individual machines is nearly impossible today. And these weren't just machines that moved dirt and pulled plows. They were symbols of American agricultural ambition, built during an era when farmers demanded more power, more capability, and more innovation than anyone thought possible. Which of these rare giants would you want working your fields? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you love stories from the era when agricultural muscle ruled America's farmland, hit that subscribe button for more.